JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. October 9th, 2024, 8:56 on this fine Wednesday. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Just talk really quick about the markets, some of the names I'm looking at, go from there. But take a look at the S&P, the SPY. The markets are mixed slightly to the downside here this morning after yesterday's rally. S&P rallied, no, I think nearly 1% yesterday, sold off nearly 1% on Monday. I put on the watch list. It's almost like you could reverse the days and make rationalize the moves for downside yesterday and upside on Monday, right? Uh, you still have uh, the discussion 10-year yield is still over 4% for the first time since August. So you still have that as a possible catalyst for the market to sell off. We still have geopolitical concerns. We have a hurricane bearing down on Florida. So there's all these different there's all these different narratives that you can create to rationalize the moves. So also the other part of that was overnight. Tuesday was the market open for China, but for us it was Monday night into Tuesday. China markets gave back almost half of the gains. It was open up 10%, closed down 4%, closed up 4%, and then it's the stimulus press release that they were supposed to give more details on was just pretty much the status quo, which everybody already knew already. So it was disappointing for the markets. So to me, it's almost like that was the catalyst. China markets could have been a catalyst for U.S. markets on Tuesday, and it did reverse. So it's funny how all those how it all plays out. But to me, I still remain worried. I mean, the VIX is still 20. It was 2150 early in the morning. It's 2140 here. To see the markets, the S&P is only down 0.2% from its all-time high, or away from its all-time high, and the VIX is still up in the 20s. It's just it's above historical levels, and the market's at historical highs. So it just doesn't make sense. And considering, if you think of all the events that could be a catalyst, we're not heading into a Fed meeting. We're not heading into any crazy catalyst. So, I mean, we do have CPI data tomorrow. We have the Fed minutes at 2 o'clock today. We have earnings season kicking off on Friday. It's just, uh, anyway. So I put on the last couple of weeks that the SPY 568 has been a big spot. If things get dicey today, which we would take we're sitting here at nearly 573 in the SPY, so we'd take a 0.75% move to get down there, or somewhere in there 0.5%. Want to see that hold if we do get some weakness. On the flip side, 575 would be the blue sky breakout. So watching those areas. Cautious, I'd remain on the cautious side till the VIX gets under $20, and maybe I'll get a little more aggressive on the call side. And there's the VIX chart. The VIX was only down 5% on a near 1% rally in the S&P. And then considering where it's at, it's not like we're at 15 on the VIX. We're at 21. So anyway, I keep that in the back of my head. And then last but not least, the small caps, barely in the green yesterday despite the market rally. It's a broken record one of these days. Small caps, please start outperforming. All right, so now individual names. I won't do too much of a rant on WW. I almost kind of wrote it off yesterday. I wouldn't say wrote it off, but it was rallying after it announced that it was adding compounded segmilitude, however you pronounce it, to their offerings. If you read the article over the weekend in Barron's, they talked about this compounded GLP-1 drugs. So what happens is when the FDA declares a shortage, these companies like Hims and Hers, Noom, were able to come out with compounded drugs to meet the demand because of the drug supply shortage. So last week the FDA declared the LLY's drug shortage was over, but MVO's drug is still on the FDA shortlist. So because of that, you still have companies that are still able to produce. And WW announced this news yesterday, and I kind of wrote it off, thinking it has a short span, because once they declared a shortage over, they're supposed to not be able to offer the compounded drugs within 6 months or something to that effect. So maybe it's a short-lived burst, or maybe there's more to it. But you look at WW. I mean, it's rallying. And if you know my rants over the last year or so, I was very bullish WW. And some of the reason was the new CEO that came in, Seema. She had house parties, sold it for millions of dollars to Take-Two Interactive, or one of those gaming companies. I thought she was going to take this arcade company, WW, and be able to transform it, use its existing base, and take it to the digital world, take it to what's happened with Zoom, right? Online meetings, virtual. And then they also announced Sequence, which takes them into almost like the teledoc side of the business, right? So that looks like it didn't play out. And it looked like they were on the verge, I thought, but seemed like subscribers were going down. And then all of a sudden, Seema was just let go. And I don't think there's any release exactly why that happened. At first, I thought she left, but it looked like it was not on her own own accord. It seemed like the company forced her out. So I pretty much said, "Oh, that's it for WW." It was trading down 77 cents, and it was rallying yesterday. Even with the 40% rally yesterday, I'm like, I didn't really believe in a rally. And then you see running in the after hours, it's up at $1.80 here in the pre-market. You start looking at the fundamentals, right? It's a $90 billion market cap. I think they have $78 million, 78 million shares of uh, outstanding. So if it's $2, it's still a $150 million company. It does $800+ million in revenues. The issue is the debt, and I think they still have $800 or $900 million in debt that they're losing money, or they were, and they've done a lot of cost cutting measures this year to get that to return hopefully to positive. And the subscribers have been going down. But if this changes that, and is this the turning point? I mean, maybe this squeezes. It's got a 17% short. It's just going $2.50, $3, $4. I mean, I looked at it, and I thought it was going to be back over $10 this year. So, not saying that's where it goes, but I'm not going to add any more calls. I rarely average down. Back in August, when before the earnings, and the stock was trading at multi-year lows, I went and got January 25 strikes. I got the $2 calls. I think I got them for like 30 cents or somewhere in there. And then a couple weeks later, I averaged down and got more at 15 cents. So they've been just sitting there pretty much to the point where I just didn't even look. And it came back a little bit to life yesterday. And they'll be solidly green this morning. I don't even know. They might be 70, 80, 90 cents. I expect if it goes over $2, they'll start to appreciate. So I'll lock some in at the open just to get all my costs covered, and then I'll ride the rest because you don't know. I mean, this could be a short-lived squeeze. This could be a long-term. People could start piling in. It's a decent story. If it's not going bankrupt, and I was put in a chat room earlier. It used to have a much higher short interest back at the start of the year. So these folks who've been short the name finally said, okay, this is it. Unless you think the stock is going to zero and you're going to wait for that, you might as well just cover. So they covered some of the shares. So the short interest is still not at its all-time highs, but it's still 17% at this level. It's almost like they're going to be forced. So who knows how many folks are going to cover? Is that going to be some of this? If it does, maybe 253, and then you start ruling, is it going to get a FOMO move? So rants for other days, but that's WW. So I'll talk more about it on the rant in the afternoon. We'll see how things go, but I'll lock some in at the open. Wynn Resorts, what else to say about that? Gap down with the China stocks yesterday. Tried to find a bounce all the way up to near 105 by the noon hour and then just sold off. It seemed like at the presentation, it was a little pullback from 104 down to 102.50. The slides came out. It looks great. But it looks like it's a 2027 launch. At some point, it looks like in 2027, UAE, their island, is going to be 20% of their revenues and profits. To me, that's huge. If you can grow your company just by opening a new location, and they're going to have the only license on that island, it seems bullish. But I guess it's so far out there, a couple of years, that it's going to take some time. So who knows how much is already priced in? They already announced it back at their earnings release back at the start of the year, and the construction been going on. So it's not any new news. It's just I was hoping there'd be a little more upside to it. We'll see. I still think it's going to head to 115 or so. I don't. If you look what's happened with some of these gaming companies, they've been left for dead. And Macau makes up 65% or so of their revenues and margins and things like that. So if that's going to come back, I think it heads much higher. So don't be surprised if I add more strikes to my 115s. Baidu, similar story. So back-to-back disappointing days for China. I mean, China was up 4% the night before, but then overnight to last night it was down over 6%. Hang Seng was down nearly 2%. If you take a look, these markets were up 25, 30% over a very short period of time. You have to think at some point they were going to take some profits. I still think this China story is in the early innings. I don't think they're just going to let it go away again, because it's been like a pattern. Seems like every time China has tried to stimulate their economy, it goes by the wayside, and then everything hits bottoms, and then all of a sudden they announce new stimulus. I think this is it, and I think they're just going to continue to try and to get things going. So don't be surprised if I add more strikes on Baidu. They also a nice positive article on the Wall Street Journal about their robo-taxi program, which was only supposed to be in China. It looks like they're going into other countries, which is also bullish. And then you also have Tesla doing their robo-taxi day tomorrow. So I don't know if Baidu is going to run up in sympathy or find more support, considering that that's one of their key levers that they're going to try and pull over the next couple of years. So really like Baidu here on this setup. We'll see if it holds here. It's at 102.50 in the pre-market. I still think, if we have a 5% update in China overnight, which I'm not ruling out tonight or tomorrow night, you can see Baidu back into the you know, 110, 115 range very quickly. So that's Baidu. Roku. So it's I put in on FinTwit yesterday. It's a very, very sneaky rally the last couple sessions. It's up the first 2 days of this week, closed up in the green on Friday. And Monday's rally was, well, it wasn't a rally, but it was a green close despite the market selling off. So it's up here at 78.50. If it breaks $80, I think that'll be it. That's been the key spot. It hit that in middle of September and then found some resistance. I think once it breaks 80, it's off to the races. You look at Netflix earnings next Thursday. I think that will provide some more catalyst for upside. My calls are up nearly 100%. They got close near the end of the day. If they're up 100% today, I'll look to close some of the calls to cover costs. It looks like news just came out. They're expanding their advertising with Instacart. I don't know if that'll do much for it. But again, you look at the trade desk and that thing's going bonkers. And I think some of that has to be because of the content on television, right? You know, I wouldn't even call it television anymore. It's streaming, right? Because it's on your devices, on your iPads and all that. So when you look at watching TV now, it's not watching it on a TV. It's at some point they'll change that wording, and television will be like the telephone back in the day, right? That's where you used to talk to people. That's not the case anymore. All right, so that's Roku. AMD. So I locked some more of the strikes in yesterday after the open. The stock was running. Tested 175 here in the pre-market. Have AI event tomorrow. I'll probably just hold the last couple of my calls into the event. I could see, especially if there's a surprise announcement tomorrow, I could see this trade up near 190. So I might just get some spec 195s into next week, possibly using some of the profits from the calls I sold yesterday. It is risky though, so this could be one of those setups where it's a sell the news event. There's no the news is just kind of in line, no surprises, and people just sell the news. So that's another scenario that could play out. So that's why I lock some in, ride freebies, have some profits. I'll look for some 195s possibly and some strengths, especially if it gets over 175 today. That's AMD. Nothing here to add on Visa and MasterCard. Visa still has that bear flag setting up. It barely closed in the green yesterday despite the market rally. Sitting right there at the 200-day moving average. I think once that breaks, it's into the 260s. Still like to hold those as hedges. Again, with the VIX at all-time, well, not the VIX, with the markets at near all-time highs and the VIX still in the 20s. I just want to have some positions for downside. And MDB is another name. MDB spiked yesterday after the open and then just melted for the rest of the day. And that was despite the market rallying. Another name I look for put hedges. So if things get dicey, maybe after the Fed minutes today, if there's some surprises in there, I'll look to get some inexpensive hedge puts. Not much here. They had on Redfin still walking the tight line, the tightrope at 10. Just needs to hold that 10. Maybe it starts to rally. Once it does, I'll look for more strikes there. VKTX had some positive phase 1B data on some rare disorder that they had a study for. I didn't even know that we were expecting data on it. It's not it's like a very rare, I don't know if it's affliction or disease or genetic disease or whatever it is, but it doesn't look like there's a huge addressable market, but it's just another notch in the VKTX tool belt for their valuation, right? Just another piece of the puzzle that just adds more value to the company. So it's up a little bit here today. A lot of calls yesterday. It was the October 1865s, had some huge volume, all at the ask. Once this breaks 70, it should be off to the races. And then once it gets over 75, I'll look to add some more strikes. And then I'm almost out of breath, but the last one here is Universal Display. I put on the watch list this morning. Look, it's got a tight Bollinger Band set up, right? So when the Bollinger Bands get tight, that typically precedes a large outside move. This one's been chopping between 220 and 205 for the last month and a half. Once that starts to get going, you look back-to-back doji candles, which typically when you have doji candles, that's indecisiveness. And then once we get the buyers to kick in, I think it hits 225, 230 quick. So and then you look, it's got the gap fill around 217. I have to go look. And then I think it's off the races. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes there. But again, I'm a little cautious, so I'll probably pass unless it shows some superior strength, like some outside move this morning. It's not the most liquid name, so but it does look interesting on a risk reward basis. That's it, folks. 20 minutes to the open. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.